Hey everyone. So I thought I'd make a video explaining kind of what oneness is from a non-dual perspective. So I have a diagram here that I'll briefly explain. So these circles kind of represent cells to me. They can kind of be whatever works for you, but I just kind of see them as cells. And at the bottom here is one cell, and then this up here is after this cell has duplicated. So now there's two cells. So in kind of getting into this, relating it back to non-duality, this cell at the bottom here, because it's one by itself, that's all there is, it can be thought of as oneness because there's just one. I mean, it's that simple. There is literally one here, and that's it. So when this cell duplicates, right? So it basically replicates itself. When that happens, now there are two cells, and we have a relationship that's now built between these two cells, right? So here, the identity at the bottom here, it's self-evident. Like there's no comparison here. Down here, there's no relativity. I can't compare myself to anything. This can't compare itself to anything because there's nothing to compare it to. But once it replicates, now it's looking at this other cell like, I'm this relative to this cell. So now we've got into duality. So kind of breaking this down here, we can kind of provide different terms for these things here. So this can be termed as duality, and this can also be termed as time. And this is eternality. So why is that? Because if there is just one thing here, this cell is by itself, there's no relativity, there's no duality, there's nothing for it to compare itself to, and because of that, there is no time. Time is only relative to something else. And see, once we get up here and we have this dualistic notion up here, we have a timeline. So, I mean, if you can kind of see it here, I see it as a timeline, which has a start and an end. So that is inherently dualistic. Another thing we could say is this can symbolize love, and this can symbolize suffering. So why is that? Well, if something is by itself, one, there's nothing else, it would kind of inherently be love, because by definition, love is unconditionality. So by being one and by itself, there is no condition. It just simply is. But once we get up here into dualism, there's two, we get to suffering. Now, why is that? Because now we have comparison. Now we're starting to compare. Now we're getting into believing things that may not be necessarily true. So to kind of hit this home a little more, this can also be thought of as the phrase, I am. And so, what is the inverse of that? I am blank, right? So, the oneness here is simply the I am, the essence, right? The root, if you want to say. This up here, once we're in duality, we start thinking I am, so my name's Tristan. I am Tristan, right? That's ultimately a belief of mine. It's a thought of mine, but it's not 100% true, because the root of this is this right here. The root of this is this oneness right here, this single cell. So in that sense, everything up here can be thought of as illusory, because it's all emanating from the origin, right? The origin, which some people call it ultimate reality, but we'll just say reality, right? Okay? So this symbolizes reality because since it's alone, standing alone, it's technically real, right? Up here, this I am this, believing stories that are illusory because their origin is this. So another way to see this, right? We have a tree, okay? This is the root of the tree. And these are the branches of the tree. So in this world, we often identify with the branches, right? But the branches aren't 100% true. The only thing that's 100% true is the root itself, because that is beyond condition. That is this single cell. Another way we can look at it is religions tell us that God is omnipresent, right? So if he's omnipresent down here, this can also be, I'll stop writing on the board. I feel like we've got enough on there at this point. But omnipresence could be symbolized as the single cell at the bottom, right? And then when it gets up here, this could be thought of as lost or hidden, right? Because omnipresence is, well, oneness, God, whatever you want to call it, universe, is everywhere, right? But when it's up here and we're believing these stories, I am this, I am that, we fail to see God or oneness, because we're caught up in the stories. So breaking this down, why does this even matter? Why do we even care about this, right? Well, the whole premise of non-duality, it kind of draws in seekers, right? Like you are seeking enlightenment, you are seeking unity, you are seeking. That's the core. That's what starts the journey, right? You want to find out who you are, right? But it's a paradox because you can't find who you are, you can only be who you are. Because the more you look here, the more you're missing here. The more you're dwelling up here and living up here, the more hidden and unknown this seems to be. So this, at the end of the day, we could think of the top here as thoughts and the bottom here as pure being, right? This is, we'll end on this right here. And this can be thoughts, right? Because thoughts are relative truth, okay? We'll do one more. I can't help myself. All right, so relative, so this would be absolute. This is absolute by itself, nothing compares, that's all there is. Once we get up here in relative, our thinking mind can only handle relative truths. So we're seeking enlightenment, we're seeking escape from our ego through relative truth. How is that ever going to happen? How are you ever going to realize enlightenment in relative truth? It is literally impossible. It is actually impossible. And I feel like a part of the journey is the ending of seeking. You have to seek until you see the futility in it. Once you see the futility in seeking, it takes you back to pure being, because you've exhausted the search of relative truth. So you go from mind to heart, from relative truth to dwelling more and more in absolute truth. So I hope this helps you guys, and expect some new videos soon. and I will see you in the next one.